We're feeling extra thankful on this Thanksgiving because we got three teams from the 260 heading to Lucas Oil Stadium. And we got our man Justin Kenny from Optimum Performance Sports breaking it down for our state finals edition of Inside the Zone. Justin, pretty successful weekend last week. 3 out of 4 teams from the area punching their ticket to Lucas Oil Stadium. Love to see it.
You do, and it was the question all season long was who was going to join Adams Central. We felt pretty good about Adams Central reaching the state championship game, but you always wonder who else can make it, and here we are talking about 3 Blue Bloods with the Flying Jets along with Snider and Bishop Luers.
I think a good place to start would be Snider, and just looking back on last year, we were at Spooler Stadium. We saw the heartbreak when they lost to Valpo in overtime. Fast forward to a year later, they come out in commanding fashion against a really good Merrillville team, winning 28-0. You got to love the response from Kurt Tippmann and company, making amends from last year, and now they're 1 win away from their 3rd state title.
They are, and you were kind of wondering after the emotions of the week before and how they had to win against Mishawaka is could they continue that? Merrillville, a very big team, a very physically imposing team, but it was Snider that really instilled their will against Merrillville. 3 touchdown runs by Uriah Buchanan as advertised, another week with him playing so well. Defense was just exceptional and really limited the ability for Merrillville to drive all the way down the field and cap drives and get points. Even when they had a short field and got it inside the red zone on a fumble on a punt, they couldn't score with a missed field goal. So phenomenal performance by Snider, and they'll get Decatur Central here on Friday night.
Yeah, speaking on Decatur Central, that was probably a bit of a surprising result from last Friday. Decatur Central knocking off Bloomington South. A lot of people thought it was going to be Snider, Bloomington South at Lucas Oil Stadium, but here we are in this Decatur Central team, kind of doing some research on them today. A little bit run heavy. They got a little bit of old school, the wing tees with some new school, the spread. And they got a guy probably in the running for one of the best names we'll see in the Hoosier States, Enpo Dodo.
Yes.
Over 1,100 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. Overall, how do you feel like Snider matches up with this Decatur Central team?
Well, I think they match up pretty well in the sense that it's a very run-heavy team, like you mentioned, with Decatur Central, and that is the strength of that Snider defense, is being able to really command the line of scrimmage defensively. And guys like Will Kelso and Adam Blakey have been phenomenal up front. That linebacker core, Rohrbacher played phenomenally well last week, and is just a really. It's nothing stand out about him. He's just a good football player with all his principles that he plays the game with, and then the back end as well. So I think if you ran up against a team that maybe spread it out a little bit more to Decatur Central and was vertical downfield, I think you'd look at it and go, but I think it matches up well for Snider, and playing teams like Mishawaka and Merrillville that are really run heavy too. I think it helps Snider in preparing for Decatur Central.
So for the Snider team, first time any of the guys on this year's team have been to Lucas Oil Stadium, but you got a guy in Kurt Tippmann who knows what it takes to bring home the crown. I mean, you look at Snider's last trip to Lucas Oil 2015. I mean, if we get anything like we did with Snider and New Pell, the 64-61 game, I mean, we'll be in for some fireworks there. But when you got a guy like Kurt Tippmann who knows what it takes to bring home that state title, just how much confidence does that breed for this team that has a coach who knows what it takes to take them to to that ultimate prize?
And a staff too. A lot of those guys have been with him for a while, and it helps really set the tone for this week and how you handled the week and knowing what buttons to push and what not. It starts from the jump with today with all the coaches down in Indianapolis, and your schedule's all wonky for Thanksgiving. So it takes experience to handle that well, and that coaching staff does. I think it's all about redemption. You mentioned it at the jump about Snider falling in semi-state last year, losing to Carroll in week 2 and losing the SAC ended up being the game that decided the SAC. This year, win a share of the SAC and now reach the state championship game. We'll see if they can cap it off with the title on Friday.
Well, speaking of those other SAC champs, Bishop Luers, nice little segue right there.
Very nice.
Yeah, well, Bishop Luers, I tell you what, Justin, you and I were at the week 1 game at East Noble. We saw Bishop Luers really get manhandled at the line of scrimmage by a really good East Noble team. If you would have told me that Bishop Luers would be playing for a state title months ago, I probably would not have believed you then. But here we are, Bishop Luers playing their best
Yeah.
football at the most important time of the year.
It was week 1 and week 2, right? After week 2, we're like, man, you had East Noble and then New Haven do it to Bishop Luers. Credit to Bishop Luers being able to use the season to round into form. So many people will say, well, it's Bishop Luers. Of course, they do this in 2A. This is a different Bishop Luers team, is that it's not star-studded. It's not a team that just you looked at and said, okay, they're going to take their lumps in the SAC and then they're going to roll through 2A. It's not like that. This team's had to work and really get better over the course of the season and grind out wins. East Side in the playoffs, right? Last week in the playoffs, just grinded out type of victories. They're not running away from people, but they are continuing to win and win in convincing fashion last week against LCC. So credit to Bishop Luers. The detractors said at some point they're going to run up against a team that's going to be able to beat them. I mean, could it be North Posey? Who knows? But so far, so good.
That is probably my biggest question. I mean, you talk about North Posey coming off a win on Saturday. Kind of odd that you have a semi-state game on Saturday, but they take down Southmont. To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about this North Posey team. Maybe you can fill me in.
Yeah.
What do you know about this team?
Runs a lot. A lot. 3 guys that have rushed for over or close to 1,000 yards. All 3 of them have double-digit touchdowns. This is a team that is predicated on establishing the line of scrimmage and running the football. And you look at Bishop Luers and you say, okay, I think Bishop Luers throughout the course of this run has done a good job against the running game. We felt LCC was going to come in with a well-rounded offensive attack and say, this is it. This is when Bishop Luers gets exposed, and they didn't. And they were very, very good in all facets defensively. So North Posey, impressive, not taking anything away from them, but you look at it and say, matchup-wise, could that defensive front have one more colossal effort for the Knights and win them a 12-state championship? I mean, looking at it on paper, you have to like Bishop Luers' chances.
I know the one big question, and that's been the big question all season, the offense. You kind of saw a little bit of that last week. You know, Gio Jimenez, Mickey Daring, really nice touchdown run in that win against LCC. Just what do you want to see from this offense? And just, you know, try to capitalize because it feels like they've really started hitting their stride the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you want to be balanced in the state championship game. So you want to be able to run the football, which Luers has been able to do, but you have to be able to be a threat vertically. And Cohen McKenzie was able to do that in that game on Friday, missed some early shots, but only completed 7 passes for 183 yards, though. So when he really was striking downfield, Bishop Luers was able to capitalize on the balls they were able to complete. So when you look at this matchup with North Posey, especially if North Posey really takes the approach of we're going to put together drives that are going to limit your possessions, and you have to maximize those, then the pressure will be on Cohen McKenzie to step up and deliver. But that's why you have a senior quarterback. You expect him to handle that role, and that's going to be the expectation on Saturday morning.
I know Bishop Luers didn't have to play Carroll or Snider during the regular season, but you look at the strength of schedules, I think that's one thing that does go Bishop Luers' favor. They've played some 4A, some 5A, some 6A teams. North Posey, they've not played anybody bigger than 3A this season.
Right.
Not to take anything away from North Posey, of course, but I do think that is one thing in Bishop Luers' favor. All right, let's go down to Class 1A. Adams Central, Indy Lutheran, round 3, just like what everybody expected. Is it third time the charm for this AC team?
You want to hope so. Lutheran has been very, very good this year, just like they were last year and the year before. If you look at how these teams compare, you can look at Lutheran and say, okay, defensively, they're not as dominant as they were last year. That's not taking anything away from Lutheran, but you're trying to find, okay, how can AC be different this year? You say, well, if they're still able to run the football, they've mixed in more passing throughout the year than we're used to them seeing, precisely because they know they're going to have to do it on Friday against Indianapolis Lutheran. You say, maybe there's an opportunity there against Lutheran's defense that is good, but not as suffocating as it was a year ago to get some points on the board, because you're not going to win this game, 13-6 or 16-13. You're going to have to score points. Adams Central just couldn't score enough of it. Maybe that leads to an opportunity on Friday to put up some more points.
You take a look at last year's matchup between AC, Lutheran. Felt like AC was in that game. And then it was really a strip sack from Lutheran against Ryan Black, quarterback at the time, that really flipped the tenor of that game. You think if AC can take care of business on that end, kind of like what you said, against a defense that may have some gaps from Indy Lutheran. I think the other thing for Lutheran, you take a look at their offense. They've got Jackson Willis, their junior quarterback, back. He torched AC's defense last year. There's no sugarcoating around that.
Right, yep.
And probably the guy that's going to be number one of the scouting report this week, Devon Jones. 3 touchdowns last year against AC. Still a pretty dynamic Indy Lutheran offense.
It is, and this is a case where if Adams Central gets into a game again where they have to outscore Lutheran and gets into the 30s, I just don't know if they could do it. So for Adams Central, I think the best thing that they possibly could have happened was the last couple games when they play Madison Grant in the sectional final and last week against North Judson, where they come out of the gate and another team kind of smacks them in the mouth. It was only 6 to 8 minutes. They were down at the end of the first quarter last week, but I think that gives them some adversity because it's easy to come out and just skunk people by 40 every week, and it's tough to stay engaged. So this is what they wanted. Adams Central's been working on this for the entire season to get here, and now they have round 3. Now they have a chance. I think if Adams Central can come out, score first, score some early points, don't fall behind because that's what's happened the last couple of years and you were playing catch up with Lutheran. If you can get the momentum early, be there in the second half and see what happens.
I think one thing about AC, Michael Mosher was talking about it this morning during the coaches media day at Lucas Oil Stadium. You know, you've got to play that perfect game against AC, and the fact that he has such a large senior class, guys who have been together, who knows what it takes to get to this stage not once, twice, 3 times.
Yeah.
You got to hope that third time is the charm for this AC squad. All right, we'll wrap up with this, Justin.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of an elephant in the room. We've seen teams from the area go to Lucas Oil Stadium over the years, but these teams are 0-6 since 2018. Last state champion from Fort Wayne, from Northeast Indiana, Bishop Dwenger. Does the 5-year drought end this weekend?
I think somebody wins. I think you look at the matchups, all 3, even Adams Central, and going, okay, this is not a Herculean matchup for this team. Nobody's facing a Cathedral or Chittard in their respective classes where you're like, okay, game over. You look at 1A and say, yes, Indianapolis Lutheran is a 2-time champion, but Adams Central's been so good. But all 3 of these games, Josh, are going to come down to execution and mistakes. Execute and limit the mistakes. If Snider's able to do that, they could win. Luers, same thing. Adams Central, same thing. If they don't do that, then our team's going to be 0-3 this weekend. So hopefully we can break the skid this weekend.
No doubt about it. Well, hopefully when Glenn Marini is back in the hot seat next week, we can be talking about
Let's hope so.
actual state champions, not state runners-up. Again, this is another edition of Inside the Zone. He is Justin. I'm Josh. We will see you next week when we wrap up the high school football regular season, or rather, the entire season.